Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 131 with Louise Henry. What's up, babes? Welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. My name is Tess. I'm the host, wealth and mindset coach for online business owners, and your biggest cheerleader when it comes to your finances and running an online business. Today, I am joined by Louise Henry. She is the owner of solopreneur-sidekick.com and runs an online course called Website That Wows. Her business is all about helping fellow business owners create beautiful Squarespace websites, and she really helps you with all of the step-by-step of building out your very own personally branded website for your business, your brand, whatever it is that you're trying to build. Louise is also a digital nomad, and I met her. I actually reached out to her. I was stalking her Pinterest profile and just absolutely loved her branding and wanted to get to know her more. And that's the funny thing about online businesses is you meet peers, colleagues, and friends by just reaching out to them via the internet. So I invited Louise to come on the show to share with us her money story, get to know her and how she built this business. She's gone through a couple different iterations of business in general, as well as understanding the business model that she has. I think it's quite fascinating and really takes a lot of guts to build a business like this because she is focused on one single product, one single course, the course Website That Wows. So I talked to her about it, understand how she's building it, utilizing this one course and specific funnels that lead to the course, as well as how she keeps her lizard brain at bay, how she doesn't get distracted by all the shiny object syndrome that I think many of us fellow entrepreneurs become victims of, let's be honest. So this is a fully stocked episode. We had so much fun recording it, and I know you are all going to enjoy it just as much. So let's get to it. Here is episode 131 with Louise Henry. Louise, welcome to the Wander Wealthy Podcast. Super excited to have you here on the show. We've tried to connect a couple times and you're traveling around the world, so internet can always be one of the biggest struggles with that. But thank you for making the time for us and tell us where you are today and where you've been and where you're going.
The internet struggles are real. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to chat with you today. I am tuning in from San Diego now, so got the internet sorted.
Yes, and you were spending quite a few months in South America, right?
So I was in Mexico.
Mexico. You're right.
Yeah.
Mexico.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was just in Mexico for 5 months, which was awesome, and going to a new city. So that's why it looks like I'm traveling so much as well, because we try and go to a new city each month.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's a totally different life to be able to really spend like a full month in each city and really engage with the local culture as opposed to kind of what I would say most people are used to doing, which is like tourist traveling, like one and done, get it all done in a day or a couple days and then go home. And I think it's so cool that you get to experience it like it's like slow traveling, I guess.
Exactly. It's a whole different experience. And you don't have to, you don't have to feel rushed. And as you said, do it all in one day. So it's like a really fun balance. And we see how people who are living there like work and live, and we kind of do both alongside with them.
Yes, cool. So we just kind of jumped into it, but let's back up. I've done a formal introduction for you, but why don't you tell us a little bit about the story of how you got to where you are today?
For sure. Okay. So I've definitely always known that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was like 16 and reading all of Richard Branson's books. So that was always a thing for me. I have tried a few different things along the way. I started out with a jewelry company, actually, where my business partner and I, we were like custom designing each piece, getting sterling silver pieces manufactured. So that was a whole thing. Then tried a clothing company. eventually that led me to Bali, where I was living, and I saw that people were living more of this laptop lifestyle. So just working from wherever they wanted in the world, as long as they had their laptop and Wi-Fi connection. So that was super appealing to me. And I realized that you could have a fully digital business, so not one that depended on inventory and shipping and fulfillment. So I was like, oh my goodness, that's so exciting. So I ended up launching this business that I have now, which is Solopreneur Sidekick. Started out as a tech virtual assistant that very quickly turned into always being Squarespace work for some reason. Just like every client who came to me had Squarespace, needed Squarespace help. So then I decided to leverage that and turn that into an online course, which is what I do now. And now I do have that laptop lifestyle business, travel full time, and am doing work that I love. So yeah, that's where I'm at now.
Awesome. I love the like very gradual kind of transition into the business that you've created, because I think a lot of people, whether they're just starting or they're kind of in this spot where they don't know kind of what the next step is, they feel like they have to jump into one thing. And the way that you were able to take very service-based work and then turn it into a digitized product is really cool. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about that, because I find that most of the people I work with and that tune in are coaches and service focused, but they're trying to figure out a way to like scale in a way that they don't have to be so, trading the time for, or trading dollars for hours. So when you're sitting down to create something that's like, I'm going to help you learn how to do this instead of doing it for you, essentially, where do you start?
Okay, awesome. Great question. Yeah, and it was gradual. So I think, for anyone starting out, like you're not going to necessarily be able to see, exactly what your path is going to look like. And that's totally okay. But it was very helpful to niche down and to just like build up my expertise. So that was definitely important, like kind of just focusing on one particular area, becoming an expert at that. And then you'll end up developing your own system, which you can then monetize. So I'm a huge fan of online courses. I mean, really any type of passive income. So if you wanted, you could start really simple, and just do like a simple digital download or something. But I have been a huge fan of creating courses, because then, yes, it is more leveraged and it's not so reliant on your time and your energy, basically. But yeah, how would I get started? I started using the software Teachable.
Okay.
And that gave me a ton of resources. So I would start there, actually. I would start there and start there on their blog. That kind of opened up my eyes to online courses and how the marketing of it all works.
And when you think about the curriculum, I just know from my own personal experience, I think there's a lot of, we just want to serve and like provide everything. And it can almost be overwhelming to those who are taking the course, actually, when you think about it. But from a person who's like trying to create a curriculum and put all the steps out there, how do you stay away from feeling like you need to include literally everything you could possibly think of?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. No, that's definitely a big struggle, but I think you need to picture the like A to B points that you want people to get to. So where are they starting from, and be really mindful of that. And then kind of give them, like, they're buying a course because they want step by step exactly what to do. And they want like the quickest and, most efficient way to get there. So it does them a disservice if you do overwhelm and you just give them all of your knowledge. So don't do that. So I made all of my lessons as short as possible. So some of them are only like 2 minutes long. Like, think about, your student who is likely going to be new to this, going to be feeling overwhelmed, and really try and make it as easy of a learning experience for them as possible, and refine it to like, okay, do they need to know this, or am I just trying to like prove that I know this?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. Whether you're building out a course or you're selling your services is, and I find especially women, we feel this, kind of natural pull to provide and really nurture and serve in that way. And when it comes to charging for your product, we almost feel like, well, I need to make my videos longer and I need to include everything because otherwise they're not going to see that it's worth it. But as you mentioned, like it does a disservice to overwhelm the student or the client.
Absolutely. And getting people to complete a course is a struggle in itself.
Yes.
So often people are just skipping through, like in my software, I can go in and I can see how much people are completing. And I'm like, oh no. Which is very normal, by the way. So,
yeah,
it's totally fine. But yeah, the simpler, the better. I would say just focus on the result. What is the result you want people to get? And then figure out the quickest and easiest way for people to get there. Because people are so busy, they don't have time to go through 50 hours of content.
Yeah. Yeah, so just remembering that more time, more stuff doesn't actually mean more value. And we need to identify and understand and get comfortable with that because that's where, that's how you get burnt out and that's how you end up having resentment sometimes towards your clients or your customers who are then skipping through all of this content you put hours upon hours of work into.
Absolutely. And it's definitely, I think issues of over delivering can come up because, you're like, oh my goodness, I just created this once and now I'm going to sell it to as many people as I want. Like it can definitely bring up some money issues. Mm-hmm. But yeah, as someone who's been through it all, it doesn't help. And they are paying for the quickest and straightest path to that result. So keep that in mind when creating your course.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. That was kind of like a tangent, but it just felt like the right path for us to go down and talk on because it's come up for me in the past too. So
absolutely.
I wanted to shift gears and we're going to come back to some of your expertise in the tangible tips round, which shockingly we aren't to yet. But, you brought up, and we were just talking on kind of the money part. And so I'd love to understand where you come from when it comes to money. What is your money story? And meaning, how did you grow up around money? And what did you learn about money growing up that may have helped or hindered you as an entrepreneur and as a grown adult today?
For sure. I love this question. Just love talking about money and money mindset, basically. I think it's one of my favorite topics. So I grew up where you had to work really hard for your money. That was the way that you were going to be successful. So you had to work super hard. We were also, it was constantly said money doesn't grow on trees. And it was quite like a tight environment and that you always had to be searching for the best deal. So it was definitely that quite, I would say it didn't feel very abundant. And it was also a source of stress in my household. So because of those reasons, money mindset has been really big for me. And I've been working to revamp that story. But at the same time, it's kind of contrasted with the fact that my dad always understood and preached the concepts from Think and Grow Rich. So that has definitely helped as I've been working on my money mindset and working to transition my story because they're super open to it. I'm very tight with my parents and, so they were super open, even though we grew up with those messages. As I've been working on feeling more abundant and fixing this money story, they've been super open to it and helpful. And they also instilled it in me that I could do anything I set my mind to. So that's definitely been helpful in keeping me going on this crazy entrepreneurial journey. So I feel I had a mix of both.
Yeah, that's really cool that you had that. And I think a lot of people, experience, they grow up and they are like, well, as an example for me, my family had a very abundant inflow of money. I grew up fairly comfortable, but there was also the mindset aspect that in some ways contrasted the comfort, like being very frugal, and even the community that I grew up in as well. It was very tight knit. And so everyone knows everything. And so it's interesting to pick apart the different aspects of your money story to see like, oh, this was helpful, this wasn't as helpful. And in adulthood, you start to identify what actually serves you and didn't serve you. So thank you for sharing that. And I also just have to say, I find that a lot of the entrepreneurs that I personally reach out to are like, yeah, I love talking about this. But then I think if I asked like everyday people that I interact with, like, what's your money story? Tell me how money was for you growing up. They'd probably be like, get away, crazy lady.
Yeah, they'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just not, it's not normal, I would say, for most people. But that's why I love this community that we're in.
Yes. How has thinking about money evolved for you in the process of, and you've gone through an entrepreneurial journey that you've had multiple different businesses and stuff, but even just going from creating physical products to providing an online service and an online course and creating passive income, have you had to switch or work on your money mindset in that regard, going from like having a physical good to give someone and charging for that versus charging for your time or your knowledge?
I didn't struggle too much with that because it was gradual, like because it was like, oh, this is my direct time was kind of, I went from physical product to then one-on-one work. So I didn't struggle too much with that, though, of course, I was undercharging like crazy, as we all do when we start. Yes. But the course definitely brought up some issues of like, oh, this is passive, and even like believing in its potential has been difficult for me because, I was okay with believing that I could create a booked out service-based business because that also didn't require, that many clients or anything. But then as I started to, set my goals for my course, it was hard to believe like in that capability and that I could get that many customers, for example. So I definitely had to work on shifting that.
Yeah. And we're all our own toughest critic. So that can be difficult in creating a course and believing in ourselves and understanding.
Oh, for sure. And even, the passive income thing is funny. Definitely people are like, oh, awesome, passive income. I'm like, I wish I could tell you that it is passive. It can be. So it can be, some people have courses like, okay, if you had a course on something like money mindset, I do think that would be fantastic and a bit easier. I'm doing a tech course, which means tech is constantly changing, which means I am always updating my course. Yeah. So it's definitely not the world's most passive thing. And I also did choose to include support from me. As I'm scaling up now, I'm removing myself as much as possible. So it's definitely getting there. I would say I do have sources of passive income, though, that are completely passive, such as affiliate income and money that I make from my YouTube channel. And those are fantastic. I'm just like, woohoo.
Yes. And I want to talk about the course and kind of the mindset in creating even like the funnel and all of that. Because when we had originally chatted, you were talking about moving to this, like, or maybe you had just only built it out in this way, this one singular funnel to your one product and really focusing and honing in on that. And I find from a mindset perspective, I think a lot of business owners who are delving into the course creation market are, again, kind of concerned with making sure they're providing. And maybe this course, like maybe it's not the best, so I'm going to create another one and then creating another one and then having to create all these funnels and bring people in very piecewise. So how did you get to going, I'm just focusing on this one thing and then creating, maybe you can walk us through what your funnel looks like, but then how you got to deciding like this is going to be the thing.
Totally. So I definitely realized that if I didn't have a funnel in place, then it's very difficult to get people, I feel, to just buy, like right off the bat, especially when it's a course and it's a more expensive product. So I am a huge fan of the funnel. So I pretty much learned that it's a numbers game, right? Once you have it up and running, you need a certain amount of people to see it. And then like statistically 3%, let's say, are going to buy. So I realized I just needed to put that in place, and I needed to stick with something for a while and work on optimizing something rather than constantly reinventing the wheel, which is something I feel we all try and do.
Shiny object syndrome.
Absolutely. So, and I also kind of felt like, okay, yes, I could create all these different courses on multiple different topics, but what if I just like created the best one of this? So, it has been tweaked and refined a bunch along the way, but yeah, I wanted to stay focused, and I wanted to get to, for example, 7 figures with just the one course. It was kind of my goal, and I had quite a few coaches saying to just do that, like stay focused. Why are you trying to add on all these hours of work and then developing another funnel? Like, why are you trying to do that versus just focusing on getting enough people into your funnel in order to hit your goals?
Mm-hmm. How do you keep your lizard brain at bay, though? Because, like, easier said than done. Even coaches can be like, just focus on this. But I feel like, and maybe you're just like the most strong-willed person in the world. But I would still be like, oh, but I could do.
Oh, no, this happens all the time. So yeah, sometimes I will just let myself, I like write down those ideas, and I'm like, okay, great. This can be what's next. Stay focused for now. Like, optimize this fully. And then once that is done, then you can definitely add things on. You don't have to. It was feeling a bit too like closed off to be like, oh, you can only do this one course. That was feeling a bit too much for me. So kind of after 2 years of that, I was like, oh, I'm starting to really feel that itch. But yeah, I just have a notebook and I write down the ideas, and then I feel like my next program as well is going to be even better because I will have had all this, time, like in my spare time. I don't really do it during like work hours, but it's just something I like think about. I feel like that next program would be really strong,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you run your course in an evergreen manner and like just constantly have a funnel feeding into it, or do you do more of a launch? I think you had mentioned preparing for a launch. So do you do more launch-based stuff for this specific course?
For sure. So what I was doing for a while was fully evergreen. So for anyone wondering who's like, what are they talking about? What is this
Yes.
funnel business? So basically what that means is I set it up on my website so that somebody could come and take a free trial of my course. So all they have to do is enter in their name and email. And then what this would do is it would automatically send out emails. So it would let them into the trial of the course, and they would be able to do 7 lessons for free. And then this was also hooked up to send out emails automatically that would pitch them on the course. It would explain all the benefits, share testimonials. So it was doing that on autopilot for me. And then I also hooked it up with a software called Deadline Funnel, which allowed me to provide them with a genuine discount specific to whenever that person gave me their email address. And that is a huge help in getting people to buy. Basically, I've only ever really had success in sales when I give them some reason to buy now. Otherwise,
you got to create that scarcity.
Yeah. Otherwise, people will just be like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. I'll do it later. And they never do. So just learning that and simply giving people a reason. So even if you didn't want to do a discount, you can do a bonus ad. Doesn't really matter. So I had that running, and that's evergreen, and that is still running, and that will get me sales. And those are really fun because you'll just be like lying in bed and get a sale. Mm-hmm. So that's great. But I have found that launches, doing like a proper launch as well, really bring a lot of attention to your brand and excitement. So I feel like the combination of the two, of the evergreen and the launching, is like the sweet spot. And can really take your business to the next level. So I just did a launch in August, and it was like so exciting. And I feel people who, aren't necessarily ready to buy right away, it gave those people another opportunity to buy. Mm-hmm. Think about it. Even with your inbox right now, like you just miss a lot of emails. There are tons of people who may have just not even gone through the funnel in full. Mm-hmm. So doing a launch, making a big deal about your product. And, I was like on social media so hard and just talking about it constantly. If you do that, I feel like it really helps. And anyone who may have missed it or just wasn't ready at that time can then all buy at the same time.
Yeah, awesome. When you do then the launch, do you like create any additional things, or is it just really more attention for your brand and for the course?
So I decided to do something different as well because I wanted it to be like an event. And yeah, I'm not the best, like some people can just kind of, for example, do like a webinar, but I felt I needed more of an event. So I decided to do a 5-day challenge. So I developed that for this last launch. And now that I have that, I will be repeating that once a quarter.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that basically, for anyone wondering, like the difference, this is all delivered live. So basically it'll be the same thing where you give me your name and email address to sign up, and then you join me live for 5 days and we go through all these exercises together. There's like action steps that you need to take. There's prizes. It's like this whole fun thing. And then on day 5, I do pitch the course for anyone who loved the challenge and wants to keep going. And I kind of do like all the pre-work that you would need. And then I pitch you basically on like, okay, if you loved this, if you love designing your website, now if you want to build it with me, here's my course. And then I do about 7 days approximately of just like selling and hyping up the course.
Yeah, that is so cool. I think the combination is a really cool kind of method, is even just to try out, is having your course be running on Evergreen, but also do launches to really increase the enthusiasm. And even just, if you have your stuff on Evergreen, not everyone might stumble upon it who, ends up stumbling upon your social media presence, or if you're like me, your Pinterest and seeing how cool you are. So yeah, that's really cool to hear from your perspective, and thank you for sharing and kind of pulling back the curtain and letting us see inside your mind and your strategy there.
Absolutely. And I'll give you some shout outs for the people that have helped me develop this. So the first one, her name is Colleen Arneal, and she's fantastic. And she just relaunched it, which is fantastic. If it is ever open, if you ever see her program, Passive Profit Empire, then join it. So that is how I first initially learned to develop my course and set up this challenge and do all of that. So you can take that course and that will walk you through it. So I did that one. And now I'm currently working with this, scaling up and the combination of doing Evergreen and launching. I'm learning from Mariah Cause, who has a ton of great resources, a podcast to get you started, and then like courses on all of this.
Awesome. Yeah. Way to go with the shout outs. I think that's so important. The last thing I wanted to touch on here is just something that I think you probably get a lot, and it's similar to what I get a lot, which is this limiting belief that a lot of people have around, we find it a lot in the business world. I find it with the financial aspects, and a lot of people just have this belief that I'm not good with money. And so they'll use that and just tell themselves that, and therefore allow that belief to keep them from moving forward. And there's also a lot of people that say, I'm just not good at the tech stuff. I just can't do technology. So your parting words as we wrap up the tangible tips round is, how do you help those people who have that deep-seated belief of like really just being like, I just can't, computers are just not my jam, or anything with technology beyond, email I can't handle. How do you help them see that by taking your course and following along with what you do and all your tutorials, that it can be simple for them and they can do it? And so if anyone listening is wanting to build a course or build their own website, they can believe that even if they think they aren't good with technology, they can be good.
Oh my gosh, yes, totally. So if you're feeling that way, you absolutely can do it. The tools that we have available to us are getting easier and easier. So that is super exciting. Like, I think people, would be amazed kind of to these tools that are popping up and how simple they're trying to make it for the end user. So that is exciting. And then I would say actually this is one of my biggest strengths. I've felt sometimes I would find teachers and they were kind of assuming that like I knew a lot and were like using, words that I had no idea what they were talking about. So I do think this is one of my biggest strengths. So you can come over to my YouTube channel. I really try and simplify all of it and start you right from the beginning. So I don't skip over things and I use tools that are all like I find the easiest tools that I possibly can and then walk you through from the very beginning. So that's one of my main selling points, honestly. And even for my course, like it's broken down step by step. So literally you're just following. I'm telling you like click here and you click here. And I truly believe that anyone can do that, even if they feel that they suck at technology. So come find me there. But also, even if it's not finding me specifically, there are so many teachers out there. YouTube, I mean, you can find pretty much anything. So you just need to get into the mindset of, okay, shoot, like I don't know how to do this. Go right over to YouTube and type it into the search bar. And like so many answers are just a quick search away.
Yes. And it really is one of your biggest strengths because you've already done it like multiple times on this podcast, explaining things that I'm like throwing words around. So thank you for that. And along the lines of that, I think even just exposing yourself, even just trying. And that's one of the big things I find with the money stuff is people shy away from it because they're just afraid of even diving in. And sometimes I call it exposure therapy, like when it comes to investing or looking at your books. It's just like, just look at it, just one step. Even if you can't get any of it, just look at it one day and then come back to it the next day and just continue to expose yourself to it and it'll eventually click.
I love that. Yeah.
All right, Louise, thank you so much for sharing so many wonderful tips and just behind the scenes of your business. I really appreciate that. I'm sure the listeners really appreciate as well. We're going to go into the money round, just getting to know you financially a little bit more, which is probably something most people don't ask you to do. So the first thing that I ask everyone is just understanding your money plan, how you make money, how you spend money, and what you save for.
Awesome. Okay, I love this round as well. I like the way you set up your podcast. It's great.
Thank you.
Okay, so how am I currently earning money? So most of the money that I earn is through my online course, Website That Wows. So as we start selling both through Evergreen and the launch model. Occasionally, I do one-on-one tech trainings. So I do have an option, for people in my course if they want to on Zoom with me and have me help them through a tech issue. I do that, but not too much. Then I have affiliate income, which I would have to say is like my favorite way of earning money. I just think it's fantastic. And that is fully passive. So, that's not reliant on me doing any more work. That just comes in through links that I have on my website, basically. Mm-hmm. And then I also earn money through my YouTube channel. So I have about 11,000 subscribers on there. So I don't make a huge amount of money, but it's still pretty good. So that's an additional source. And then for spending, I'm mostly reinvesting into the business. I definitely have a bunch of tools that I use to run my business. And then I'm spending on education and coaching. And then for saving, I'm working on just having a cushion so that I don't have to worry about money. I think that's like just such a nice feeling, to not have to worry about it. So working towards saving and then also just continuing the lifestyle that I have now. So I do have a lot of freedom in my life where I am traveling a lot and I can kind of, be wherever I want. So continuing that lifestyle, but just adding on more financial freedom.
Yeah. Do you find that the way that you are traveling, I mean, it's very digital nomad, spending more time in like one location, but then still kind of moving. Do you find that and I'm sure it depends per country, but I guess on an average basis, you're spending less than you would if you stayed put in one place? Or specifically, I know you're from Canada, stay put in one town in Canada?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, there are ways to do it for sure that are significantly cheaper. So I think the only, real add-on is the flights, but you can be super smart. Like if this type of lifestyle appeals to you, you can be really smart. I mean, and the type of places you can live in are significantly nicer than what you could afford in your home country, for example. So that's been really fun. And I mean, we saw just a direct comparison. For example, we were just in Mexico City. We had like a gorgeous condo, and that only cost us 1,800 Canadian for the month. And it was, like beautiful, right in the city. And so then therefore all of our Ubers were like $2 each, which was fantastic. And then we went to New York, which was just crazy. We went to New York and it was, I forget how much it was, but for like 2 weeks in New York, it was like 2,700, and each Uber all the time was like $30. So it was quite a solid jump.
But being in Mexico for 5 months, you said, and now you've been in New York and San Diego, it's like, if you're willing to be in Mexico for 5 months, then it kind of evens out. I mean, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, it definitely evens out. And I mean, even most people are not really like digital nomading in America.
Right.
So that was specific for like events that I wanted to go to. But yeah, there are so many like gorgeous locations out there, and it is a cost-effective way to do it. I think people don't realize how cost-effective it can be. So, South America, Mexico, Thailand, Bali, places like Portugal are all actually quite inexpensive.
Yeah. I think, just to your point, when I talk to my clients about retirement, I always say a lot of people don't realize how expensive working is, especially if you're not a digital nomad. The commute, having a car, paying for rent in a certain place so that you can get to where you're working, having to buy clothes, like all of that. And then the temptation of buying lunch and mingling with your coworkers at happy hour and stuff, like that all adds up quite a lot. And so when you have more flexibility and freedom, you can also cut a lot of those costs if you want to. If you don't want to, that's
absolutely
cool too.
Yeah. It's like if you don't want to, that's absolutely fine. But it definitely, I think I just like emphasizing for people that it's more accessible than it seems. I think we always think like travel, expensive, glamorous, and it's like, you can actually, it can be a really inexpensive, and it can be smart, like versus, having to pay, like for at home, if I were to rent a place, I would be locked in to a place for a year. And I don't like that type of restriction. I don't like being like, oh man, like I've decided on this place for a year. So you can just like cut that out completely, and you don't have to do that.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, thank you so much. We're going to move into the quick and dirty Q&A, just a couple fast-paced questions to wrap up the show. And the first one, I'd love to know what you do to get away from work. Like, what do you do for fun that completely differentiates you from solopreneur sidekick?
I love that, but oh God.
You're like, I don't know, sleep?
Like, Netflix? I mean, yeah, when you have a personal brand, it definitely, the lines get blurred. And, even if you're doing something fun, you're like taking an Instagram story and posting it.
Right.
So there definitely is the huge crossover. What do I do? I'm quite like simple, and I just like to like read or go to the beach, or we're mostly, I would say, if we're not working, we're in a new place, so we're exploring, so we're like going to some site, or we're going to a museum or something. But it all kind of crosses over because I do post it on Instagram.
Yeah. I totally understand where you're coming from. I was asked that question on a podcast, kind of. It was actually like a, who are you? And I was like, oh, well, I'm a business owner. And they're like, no, who are you? And I'm like, who am I? I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that. I need to go on a meditation retreat now.
Yeah, that's a deep question.
All right. Thank you for dealing with my very difficult questions. Who is your favorite person or account to follow on social media?
Okay, so this is a really good question. I feel like it changes, but I wanted to share Jenna Black. Do you follow her?
I do.
Yeah, so I think so often, people get caught up in social media and we get caught up in the comparison trap. What I love about her is she basically is like, she's using it as a way to give us positive money affirmations. So sometimes I'll just open my phone and then a lot of the times it's her and it's a positive money affirmation. So I just love that. Like, I think social media can be a positive tool. And basically, I just get like a hit of positivity and inspiration all at once. So yeah, I would say her, which is her username is @jennablack.inc.
Great.
Yeah.
What is the book that has been the most pivotal for you?
I feel like there's been lots of books along the way. Definitely Richard Branson when I was younger really kind of showed me like a new way of thinking, and he kind of normalized for me like how I like to think. So I was like, oh, I think I'm an entrepreneur then. Like, this makes sense. So that was definitely, I would say, a turning point for me. And then recently I read Chillpreneur by Denise Duffield Thomas, and I really love that one. I love that one as well.
Awesome. The best piece of money advice you've been told that you'd like to pass along?
I would say it's like so simple, but to simply take responsibility. So often I would like shy away from my numbers, kind of like the, being afraid of tech thing where, I was definitely just like afraid of looking at my money. So simply like looking at your numbers as often as you possibly can and really just being aware of what's coming in, what's coming out. And for anybody out there with the online business, do a frequent audit of your tools, because so often we like sign up for things, we think we're going to need them, we end up paying for them even if we aren't using them.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Very simple. Take responsibility. That's great advice. Louise, thank you so much for joining us today. Please tell us where we can find you so we can continue to follow along. And I will say your website is beautiful. You have wonderful branding, so you guys definitely have to go check her out. So tell us how we can follow along with you.
So sweet. Thank you so much. This has been a fantastic chat. You can find me at solopreneurs.sidekick.com. So all my videos and my course and everything is over there.
Perfect. Thank you so much again for coming on the show, and safe travels to your next destination.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap, episode number 131 with Louise Henry. She dropped so many great references and resources in this episode. Don't forget to check them out in the show notes. Go to wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 131 or click the link in the description of this show. Now, 2 more things to share with you before we sign off for the day. Number 1, if you guys are not subscribed to the podcast, what are you doing? Go ahead and hit the subscribe button in whatever podcast player you're using. And I would love it if you could leave this show a rating and a review. All you have to do is go to iTunes, hit those 5 stars. Once you search for Wander Wealthy, of course, hit the 5 stars and then leave a quick review. It might take a couple days, but it's all good. It'll show up eventually once you submit the review. Now, the second thing, I have something great for you guys. So I have a blog post. You guys, I write a blog sometimes. I have a blog post that is fairly old, but not outdated. I just wrote it a long time ago. And it is a how to start a podcast on the cheap blog post. And so many people have read it, shared it, loved it, and I wanted to just let you all know that it exists. And if you are interested in starting your own podcast, I have heard, and you can read these in the comments, so many people have commented on how this was the most helpful blog post for them who are, those people interested in starting a podcast. So I really step-by-step walk you through how to start a podcast. I recommend the tools and resources that I use to create the podcast that you are listening listening to now. So if you want to check it out, I'm going to link it in the show notes as well as the description box of this episode. Now, the reason I am sharing this is because I just recently chatted with Libsyn. They are the host of the Wander Wealthy podcast. And if you didn't know, which I think a lot of people are surprised by, you really need to have an audio host if you are going to start a podcast. You can't just record it and then upload it to your website, because if you get big someday, like we're all going to, it could crash your website. So you need an audio host to host those audio files, and I use Libsyn. Now, Libsyn does not partner with many people, but I have finally gotten them to partner with me to provide you all who are interested in setting up a Libsyn account so that they can host your podcast, to offer a free month, your first free month, when you sign up with Libsyn. Now, here's what you have to do, and there's some tricks here. So you can use the code TESS. So you can literally just go to libsyn.com. It's Libsyn, a little strange. Again, you can find all these links in the blog post that I'm going to link you to, or literally just Google search Wander Wealthy, how to start a podcast on the cheap, and then you'll find the blog post that I'm talking about. But when you're setting up your Libsyn hosting platform, enter the code TESS when you are checking out. And what that's going to get you is the rest of the current month for free, as well as the next month for free. Now, there is a trick. Just don't do this on the first of the month, because depending on your time zone, you might not get 2 free months and you would only get 1. So do it on like the 2nd or the 5th or the 15th of the month. You'll get the rest of the current month for free and the following month for free. What you want to do also is maybe sign up for one of the higher price point tiers while you're launching your podcast, so that you can, capture all the benefits. And then if you want to or you need to, you can always level back down after your free month is over. Just know that you can't change once you are in on your free month. You can't change up or down. So get in high and then adjust low once your free months are over. And then, you can utilize Libsyn for $5 a month. I pay the $20 a month range so that I can get enough space to host my show, as well as the awesome statistics package that they offer. So I wanted to let you know that. I also have a bunch of other great links that you can get to when you look at how to start your own podcast if you go to that blog post. And again, I just think so many people are wondering about starting a podcast. They're curious about what it takes and how much time it's going to take and how expensive it's going to be. And you can really do it for very little money. And starting my podcast was one of the best things I've ever done. It's created an entire business for me. So if you are on the edge of your seat, maybe you're running a business and you just want a new way to connect with your audience, or maybe you haven't started a business yet, or maybe you just want to do it for fun, know that it can be a rather affordable hobby. And then if you do want to, you can even create income from it. I also happen to have a blog post about how to make money from podcasting. So that'll be the next step for you. But anyway, go check that out. I just wanted to let you all know because it's a new development in my life. And yes, you can get access to Libsyn and get some free months if you use code TESS at checkout. All right, my friends, that is it for today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And until next time, I hope you wander wealthy.